welcome to Christmas 2016. And this is a new variation on the annual name-related slideshow. And this year it's Kevin, and this year we're going to narrate it and put it on the YouTube. So enjoy. So format-wise, I'm going to give you a few seconds to try to figure out who each person is. Might even give you a clue or two while the picture is up there, and then we'll click to the next slide to see who this gentleman is. I think you probably have had enough time. I think most of you probably recognize this man as Kevin Hart. Very famous comedian, also an actor, writer, and producer. Has done a number of different things lately and is pretty popular, so I think you probably know him. The next slide is a character that's named Kevin, and again I think probably all of you recognize that this is Macaulay Culkin from the Home Alone movies, but do you remember his name? In the Home Alone movies his name was Kevin McAllister. This is also a very familiar one. Kevin Costner is an Oscar-winning actor. He won the Oscar for Dances with Wolves. He's been in a number of different movies. I think we all know who Kevin Costner is. This is a different Kevin, though. I don't think you'll know him. I didn't know him before. This is Kevin Poulson. Kevin is a black hat hacker. Hackers are either black hats or white hats. Black hats are the ones that are malevolent. White hats are the ones that are really trying to help security in regards to hacking. Kevin actually in 1990 took over all of the telephone lines on a radio station in Los Angeles so that he could win a Porsche. Since then, he has reformed, however, and he is no longer a bad guy. He's now an editor at Wired. This is a very famous Kevin. Probably most of us know him from his acting role as Silent Bob, but he also is a very well-known director, did Jersey Girl and a bunch of other fairly well-known movies. This, of course, is Kevin Smith. This Kevin is a lot less known. He's actually been in a number of different television shows and movies. He's one of those Kevins that you recognize, but you really never really knew his last name. His last name is Kevin Dunn. He was in the movie Dave with someone else that will be in the slideshow a little bit later, and also was on Transformers. Now he is on Veep. The next Kevin, of course, is very well known. This is a gentleman that's been on a very popular sitcom. He's done stand-up comedy. I think we all recognize this guy as Kevin James, best known as the King of Queens. This is another one of the Kevins that we all recognize. Never really probably even knew his name was Kevin, but this is Kevin Pollak. He's been in a number of different movies. He was in A Few Good Men with Tom Cruise. He's been in a bunch of different things, and those of us that remember Celebrity Poker remember that he was the host for the first season. This is another very famous Kevin. Was the subject of a lot of interest a number of years ago with 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, where two college students tried to figure out how they could connect all different actors to this gentleman, and he initially thought it was insulting, but then decided that they were serious, and really did seem to like the fact that we talked about Kevin Bacon as much as we did. He is married to Kara Sedgwick, who is the lead on the television show The Closer, which is very popular at my house. This is another comedian who unfortunately died just this year. A lot of us recognize his stand-up comedy when we hear it, but he has not been popular for some time. His name is Kevin Meaney. He did a lot of voiceovers for Dr. Katz, Space Ghost, as well as a number of others, including Duckman. There was a short-lived sitcom version of Uncle Buck in which he was the lead. This is a Kevin that I don't think anyone will know. He's a baseball player from the Baltimore Orioles. He's a pitcher, just made his debut a couple of years ago. His name is Kevin Gausman. This is someone that's not very well known to me because I'm not much of a gridiron fan, but this is a gentleman by the name of Kevin Carter, who is a former college and professional player, played 14 seasons in the NFL, and received a number of different honors. This is one that draws a lot more from pop culture. This is a character, if you will, from the TV show Shark Tank, referred to on the show as Mr. Wonderful. He is an investor who used to be an executive for Nabisco, born in Quebec, and rumored to live in the Boston area, although I really didn't find a lot of confirmation for that online. This is Kevin O'Leary. This is Kevin O'Connor from This Old House. This is one of the most famous Kevins that there is, very well known for House of Cards as well as a number of feature films. This one is Kevin Spacey. This gentleman obviously voices Elmo. I don't know how many of you will remember this Kevin, but this is Kevin Clash. He's an American puppeteer, voiced Elmo and a few of the other Muppets. Unfortunately, Kevin got into some legal troubles a few years ago and had to leave Sesame Street. Eventually, the charges were dropped, but unfortunately, it has negatively impacted his career. This is a executive from one of the largest corporations in America. He is the CEO of Warner Brothers, Kevin Tsujihara, and a very influential and affluent gentleman. This is a rapper, and his name is Kevin Gates. On YouTube, just for fun, I checked, and he has a number of different YouTube videos that have over 150 million views. I was not particularly familiar with Kevin, but as I say, he is pretty well known. This is another Kevin. He's a white hat hacker by the name of Kevin Mitnick. He actually was also a black hat hacker at one time, and he actually ended up spending a fair amount of time incarcerated, 5 years, and a number of that time he was kept away from all sorts of electronic devices with the worry that he could, quote, start a nuclear war by whistling into a payphone, end quote. Now he's a white hat hacker. He does a security consulting firm and is in demand. This gentleman should be very well known to a lot of us. He is a basketball player who is very well known in New England. A guy by the name of Kevin Garnett. Played for the Celtics from 2007 to 2013. They were the NBA champions in 2008. Since then, he's played for other teams and ended up playing a total of 21 seasons in the NBA, but has since retired. This gentleman also played in the NBA, as well as serving as the mayor of a well-known California city. This is Kevin Johnson. He played for the Cavaliers in his rookie year and then for the Suns for the next several years of his career. He was the mayor of San Francisco until very recently, and had a very stormy time as mayor, but did serve 8 years. This gentleman is a Kevin, although his real name is Keith. He plays a Kevin on a TV show. You might recognize the set as the set of The Office, and his character in The Office is Kevin Malone. And Kevin Malone was also a character on the British Office, and he is played in the United States by O'Brien, but in the UK he was played by Keith. And this gentleman is also a basketball player, probably one of the best known in the NBA currently. Plays for Oklahoma City. His name is Kevin Durant, and he also has played for the Warriors. He's won a number of different awards and 2 Olympic gold medals. This is another Kevin that probably none of us have heard of, but we'll probably want to keep an eye out for. This is Kevin Kiermaier. He's an outfielder for the Tampa Bay Rays. He's been in the big leagues since 2013. Has a pretty mediocre batting average, a few home runs, few RBIs, and a few stolen bases. I guess we'll just have to wait and see if he makes anything of himself. This is a Kevin, even though his legal first name is Paul. He and his brothers have a well-known singing act. This is Kevin Jonas. He's one of the Jonas brothers. He's 29 years old. And he and his wife also had a reality series on E! Called Married to Jonas. This is, in some circles, maybe the most famous Kevin. The circles that he would be the most famous Kevin would be WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, previously known as the World Wrestling Federation, until the World Wildlife Fund decided that they wanted the WWF logo back. Kevin Owens is actually the current and longest reigning Universal Champion of the WWE. So I'm sure that we will be hearing a lot more about Kevin Owens in the years to come. This is another Kevin that is a NFL player. This is Kevin Greene, well known, played in the NFL for 15 years, has been out of the NFL for 15 plus years at this point as well, but has a number of different records and is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. This Kevin would be probably more well known in Europe than he is here. I had to have at least one real football player besides all the gridiron players. This is Kevin Grubnick, who's a German footballer, and in fact has had 2 Bundesliga titles. This is also another Kevin, another person that you probably recognize his face and have seen him in movies, but probably didn't know he was a Kevin and had no idea what his last name was. He's actually been in 33 different movies. You might remember him from There Will Be Blood, or you might not. His name is Kevin J. O'Connor. just for fun, I thought I'd bring the other Kevin O'Connor back again, just to remind you that he also had been a vice president at Fleet Bank before he ended up as the host of This Old House on PBS. This Kevin, I stretched his face a little bit on the slides, but it wouldn't have helped anyways, because you might know his work, but you probably don't know him. Screenwriter known for Dawson's Creek, Vampire Diaries, for Scream, as well as the sequel Scream 2 and Scream 4. Not sure what he was doing during Scream 3. I'm not even sure there was a Scream 3. I just kind of assumed there was. But he also wrote the screenplay for I Know What You Did Last Summer and a number of other horror films. This is a well-known Kevin, which I'm sure that most of you will recognize him right off. Kevin Youkilis was actually not on the 2004 Red Sox team when they played in the World Series, but he did actually play a short stint at third base in the 2004 series when Bill Miller was on the disabled list. He was on the 2007 World Championship team. He became a free agent after the 2012 season. He did play in 2013 and 2014. 2013 for a team whose name cannot be mentioned. And then in 2014 he played for a Japanese team. Did not much with either of those teams, however, and did retire. He called Theo Epstein and offered to help out. So now he is a scout for the Cubs. This is another well-known Kevin. If you watch Saturday Night Live, he was on Saturday Night Live for almost 10 years. Has done a lot of guest shots on a lot of other shows. This is Kevin Nealon. He hasn't been on Saturday Night Live for some time, but they still show a lot of the reruns. He had acted in the Happy Madison films. If anybody is actually an Adam Sandler fan, you know that it was Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison, but they actually merged the two names to create the company that makes the films. He also was on Showtime, on Weeds, and also has done some voice acting. My favorite character that he does is Mr. Subliminal. I'll leave it to you to look that up on YouTube if you're not familiar with him, but I personally find it hilarious, but everybody has a different sense of humor. This is another famous Kevin, has done a number of well-known movies, most notably A Fish Called Wanda, for which he won an Oscar. He's also won several Tony Awards and has been very much of a theater-type actor for much of his career. He was also in Dave, which was fairly popular, as well as the horrible film Wild Wild West, but he was also in Pink Panther as well. This is a gentleman that's a radiologist. I doubt that you know him. You do know his name because his name is Kevin Chang. He's a radiologist in East Providence, Rhode Island, and he's affiliated with a number of different hospitals in the area. This is Kevin O'Brien Chang. And Kevin O'Brien Chang is an interesting guy who was born in Jamaica but actually spent a fair amount of time in Canada, and then eventually moved back to Jamaica to run a pharmacy, but also to be a political analyst and write a column and write a blog and a number of different things. And then the last slide, of course, is the real Kevin Chang. These pictures are a few years old, but he is eternally cute, and I wish him a very happy holiday and a Merry Christmas and Happy Festivus and all of that. I hope you enjoyed your slideshow, Kevin.